Hello everyone! Thanks for coming back to hear what else I saw in June that I haven't already talked about. I know we've still got a couple days left in the month, but the way the calendar lines up this year, this works better. I want to spend my 4th of July celebrating America's 250th birthday, not editing this video, so we're doing it now. Movie number 1 is 1963's Shock Corridor, written and directed by Sam Fuller. Peter Breck plays Johnny, a reporter who fakes mental illness to get himself admitted to an asylum's psychiatric ward in order to interrogate the witnesses of a murder and find the killer. That's all I knew about the story going into it. I had no idea it would have so much to do with sex and incest, a striptease act, and some twisted racism. Constance Towers plays Johnny's fellow reporter and girlfriend, who reluctantly agrees to help by pretending to be his sister and accusing him of inappropriate behavior. She complies because she loves him so much, but she hates it, just like she hates the job she's taken as a singing stripper. And her concerns are only elevated as she sees Johnny's mental state appear to deteriorate. Breck and Towers are both good, as are some of the men playing the other patients. But wow, this is not my kind of movie. The Freudian stuff, the envelope-pushing avant-garde style. There's a black patient who has manic episodes where he leads KKK meetings and starts shouting the N-word over and over again. Wow, that was okay. And in general, there's a ton of screaming. Breck yells and thrashes and other people freak out. It's a lot. I did find it odd that they talk about a reporter faking insanity to get institutionalized as if it had never been done before. But famously, Nellie Bly did it back in 1887. I just read her account 10 Days in a Madhouse a few months ago. Did they forget about that? I also felt that if you take away all the shocking and performative stuff, the story's pretty simple with some gaps in logic. But it is an intense and daring film, and though I didn't really enjoy it, it was interesting. Movie number 2 is 2023's Retribution. Liam Neeson plays a workaholic hedge fund manager trying to drive his kids to school one morning when an ominous anonymous caller tells him there's a bomb under his seat, and if he doesn't comply with his demands, the car will explode. I've seen a fair number of Liam Neeson's senior action hero movies. They were entertaining enough, but I became aware of a sense of diminishing returns, so I took a break. When I noticed Amazon Prime hawking this movie, though, I've gotta admit, they got me with the "it all takes place in the car" gimmick. The movie's okay. Say what you will about Neeson's age and believability, I think he's still got it. It helps that despite an introduction where he's using a punching bag, showing us he's still in shape, he does spend most of his screen time sitting in the vehicle. I wouldn't call this the easiest paycheck of his career, though. He's got emoting to do, and being stuck in the seat imposes a restriction that he has to work around. I did expect more action than there was. I thought he might get into a fight in the final act, especially after that punching bag scene in the beginning. But at the same time, I feel like if he had, then we'd all be complaining about how unlikely or unrealistic it was. Embeth Davidtz plays his wife, Matthew Modine his boss. The two kids are fine. Their squabbling in the beginning is kind of annoying, and they face the same limitations as Neeson, spending most of their time sitting there looking worried or scared. But they're decent at that, and the whole movie's not terrible. I'll never remember the title, though. Movie number 3 is 2011's Captain America, the First Avenger. Steve Rogers is a guy who wants nothing more than to join the army and fight the Nazis. But with his scrawny physique and bevy of health problems, he keeps getting rejected, until he proves to be the ideal candidate for an experiment that will turn him into a super soldier. I am not into comic books or superhero movies, but I am familiar with them. I keep tabs on popular movie news and trends, have done for years, and I have seen a handful of the Marvel movies. Unfortunately, because I did watch reviews that gave everything away back in the day, there weren't many surprises here. Plus, I know what happens in later movies. I like Steve Rogers as a character. He's honest, loyal, wholesome, loves his country. He's awfully serious, but sometimes that is a source of humor. The effects for Skinny Steve are still impressive, and Chris Evans has always done a good job playing him. He never feels like a superhero. He's just a regular guy pumped full of questionable blue liquid. His character stays the same, and I appreciate that lesson. I had forgotten just how many familiar faces pop up here. Stanley Tucci has a key role, and Tommy Lee Jones is a main character, dropping dry one-liners and keeping things grounded for those of us who need it. Hugo Weaving as the big baddie Red Skull wears villainous clothing and makes dramatic speeches with a German accent that sounds kinda like a Werner Herzog impression sometimes. And there are appearances from a bunch of British actors who probably leaped at the chance to escape BBC costume dramas and work on a big Hollywood production. I like the core Captain America storyline, Steve Rogers' friendship with Bucky Barnes, his relationship with Agent Peggy Carter, and I already know what happens with all of that. I like how his story continues in the present day with the Avengers, where he's a young-looking, old-timey man out of step with everyone else. I like all of that. I like these pieces. I like the concepts. I thought I would be into the film, especially with its World War II setting, but when I sat down and finally watched it, I didn't hate it. I just felt ambivalent. This is considered the most accessible Marvel movie, a good entry point, or a standalone film you can enjoy even if you don't know any lore. And that's all true, and it's so nice that you don't have to watch 14 other movies to get what's going on. But while I found the first half engaging, I was surprisingly bored in the second half. And maybe this is because I have seen so many war movies. The tanks and aircraft and cars and explosions and fighting style were so comically over the top, it took me right out of it. I also made the choice to watch this with my parents. It was a gamble. I thought it would be fine, but they were even less into it. I did explain a few of the Easter eggs to them, but I needn't have bothered. They didn't care. Movie number 4 is 1948's I Love Trouble. Francho Tone plays a private detective who's been hired to check up on a guy's wife. During the investigation into her background, he unearths all kinds of sketchy types. This one has a complicated narrative, a wisecracking PI who can't resist a beautiful woman, and there are several of those, multiple antagonists, some snappy dialogue, all of which makes it feel like a Philip Marlowe detective story. There were even a couple times when I thought, okay, Tone said that line just like Humphrey Bogart. I'm not saying this as a criticism, it was a funny thing, like the movie was a sneaky little parody. Some familiar faces pop up here: Stephen Gray, John Ireland, Raymond Burr, Adele Jurgens. They all make entertaining appearances, and I particularly enjoyed seeing Glenda Farrell as Tone's secretary. She doesn't pop up much, but when she does, she's very likable. The next 3 I watched on Sony's streaming app, Sony Pictures Core, which a month ago I didn't even know existed. I got a free 7-day trial through Prime. After the trial, it costs $6.99. It looks like there's no exclusive original content, but there's no ads, which gives it a leg up on some other streaming services, in my opinion. I really shouldn't talk about this kind of stuff, though, because I don't do the streaming apps thing, so I don't know what I'm talking about. Movie number 5 is the reason I got the trial. My mom was itching to see this movie again, and this was the quickest, easiest way. 1982's Tootsie. Dustin Hoffman plays actor Michael Dorsey, who's talented but difficult, and no one will hire him. He needs money to fund his roommate's play, so in an experimental act of desperation, he tries out for a soap opera as a woman, and to his shock, he gets the part. An actor to his core, Michael commits to the bit, throwing himself into the all-consuming role of Dorothy Michaels. But when his part on the show becomes a hit, It brings outrageous complications to his personal life. I would have said that I'd seen parts of this before, but it turns out I had actually seen the whole thing, and I think there are some parts that I saw several times. It used to play on TV quite a bit, and my mom often couldn't resist stopping on it. It is funnier than I remembered, or maybe I get more of the humor now. The dialogue is witty and moves fast. There's even a little slapstick. A big scene stealer is Sidney Pollack, who, in addition to directing the film, plays Michael's exasperated agent. He's great, and Bill Murray as the melancholy playwriting roommate shines whenever he shows up. Same with George Gaines, who plays the vapid, horny senior doctor on the show. The daytime soap opera is essentially an imitation of General Hospital, which was huge at the time this movie came out. I have watched some old General Hospital on YouTube. This was years ago. And watching this, I realized there was actually a twist in the Luke and Lara on the Run storyline that predated the last-minute fix Michael improvises here by a couple years. I am slightly embarrassed that I know this. The parts where they're filming and Dorothy suddenly starts going off the teleprompter, forcing the actors and the cameramen and everyone else to panic, were some of my favorites. The people crowded in the sound booth had the best reactions. And Dustin Hoffman is really funny here, even though he later divulged that he never viewed this film as a comedy. Going through the transformation process was sobering and enlightening for him, altering his perspective of women and society's beauty standards. And I think that comes through in the sincerity of his performance. When Michael rants with such conviction about his clothing, hair, makeup, and the myriad frustrations and injustices he's putting up with as Dorothy, it feels like more than just a gag played for laughs. And that's what takes the movie to a deeper level. His increasingly bizarre problems are hilarious, but Dorothy becomes a champion for women. Women in the workplace, women at home, women who are a little older, a little homely, but also women who are young and pretty. All women who have to deal with the same nonsense. Harassment, dismissal of opinions and ideas, unwanted, infantilizing pet names. It's funny when Dorothy Michaels, this quaint, prim, slightly southern type, stands up to this treatment, but for the women watching, it also becomes an inspiration. The problem is that Michael becomes a soap superstar, making it harder to get out of the job, and he wants out not just because this act is exhausting, but because he's fallen in love with Jessica Lange's character, his co-star, who becomes his gal pal. It's a messy situation, but it is funny and surprisingly heartwarming. The cast also features Terry Garr as Michael's neurotic girlfriend, Dabney Coleman as the smarmy director, Charles Durning as Lange's lonely widower father, Gina Davis as another cast member, and Lynn Thigpen. I recognized her from Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego? Movie number 6 is 1987's Suspect. Cher plays a public defender in Washington, D.C., who's assigned the case of a violent vagrant charged with murdering a government typist. The defense seems hopeless, especially when she discovers her client, Liam Neeson, is a deaf mute. But when one of the jurors, Dennis Quaid, starts getting involved, this apparent cut-and-dry case takes on a new dimension. My mom has mentioned this movie to me several times over the years. When I saw the Sony streaming service had it, with no ads, I thought, this is my chance! Cher is good, giving a low-key performance as a lawyer who's worn down and wondering why she's still doing this thankless job, especially when everything seems to be working against her. We did accidentally watch 2 Liam Neeson movies this month. That's breaking the rules! He's so woolly-bully at first that he's barely recognizable, but gradually they clean him up, and he looks 10 years younger each time you see him. His performance is good, of course, though it is a little strange to have Liam Neeson, who's got a famous voice, play a silent role. Dennis Quaid is well cast as a slick, up-and-coming lobbyist. I couldn't imagine how his storyline was going to connect until he got saddled with jury duty. He wants to get out of it, but he doesn't, and then he ends up taking an interest in the case. The film doesn't make it clear why. Is it because he notices a subtle detail everyone else has missed? Is it because he has a strong sense of justice? Is it because a little verbal sparring with Cher sparked his attention? Personally, I think it's all three. The film, which also features John Mahoney and Joe Mantegna, is part mystery, part thriller, with a few great suspenseful sequences. Granted, the one in the library could have been easily mitigated if they had cell phones, but then we would have missed out on this knuckle-biter. There's the danger of a potential killer being on the loose, but also the danger of someone finding out that Cher is getting help from one of the jurors who's playing amateur detective, which would be a major violation of ethics, could completely destroy her case, and get her disbarred. I felt so anxious every time they communicated. It was good, though. I didn't expect the story to take the path it did, and I didn't anticipate it being so intense. I can think of a couple things they could have cut to make the movie a smidge shorter, but it didn't feel like its 2-hour runtime. Movie number 7 is 1984's The Muppets Take Manhattan. Kermit the Frog and friends put on a musical as they graduate college. It's such a hit on campus that they're inspired to take it to Broadway, but finding a producer is harder than they thought, and with their funds gone and nothing to show for it, the group splits up. I guess this is considered a lesser Muppets movie, and I can see why, but I still thought it was pretty good, and infinitely better than Muppets from Space, which is one of the greatest cinematic disappointments of my youth. The human co-stars are Juliana Donald as a kind and friendly waitress, Louis Zorick as the restaurant owner who drops incomprehensible words of advice, and Lonnie Price as an eager producer's son. And then there are all the cameo appearances, including Dabney Coleman, that's 2 for him this month, playing a fraud who gets attacked by Gonzo, Camille, and Animal. That was funny to see. Joan Rivers working the perfume counter with Miss Piggy, Gregory Hines as a sympathetic rollerblader in Central Park, Brooke Shields eating at the diner, Liza Minnelli showing up for a moment of dignified outrage. This one isn't a cameo, but Gates McFadden, Dr. Beverly Crusher, has a bit part as Coleman's secretary. The Muppet Babies perform a number, the Sesame Street gang shows up for the finale, and there were other cameos that flew over my head. The songs are pretty enjoyable, matched with creative visuals and sentimental moments. There's humor for the kids and humor for the grown-ups, and all of this is what I expect from a Muppets movie. I did notice that the World Trade Center was not shown in establishing shots of the city, and I wondered what the deal was with that. Turns out the Twin Towers were purposely excluded from the city vistas because they were too modern-looking and would spoil the timeless feel they were going for. And when I consider the costumes, the sets, and even the story, they do feel more suited to the 30s, 40s, or 50s. So I think they succeeded in their goal. Movie number 8 is 1990's Memphis Belle. It's May 1943, and the crew of the B-17 bomber Memphis Belle is about to go on its record 25th bombing run over enemy territory. John Lithgow's PR colonel arrives at the base to launch a press tour featuring the men, but before they can celebrate and sell war bonds in the US, they have to survive their final mission. Holy cow, there are a lot of people in this. Eric Stoltz, Harry Connick Jr., D.B. Sweeney, Sean Astin, who does not look old enough to be in the Army Air Corps, Matthew Modine, that's 2 movies for him this month, I really messed up, Tate Donovan, Stephen McIntosh, David Strathern, and Billy Zane. I don't know why it is that on the rare occasions when he shows up, I have to say that, but I do. It's Billy Zane! This is one of those movies that can easily be split into 2 parts. The setup that introduces the characters, and the mission with all the action and peril. I liked the second half much better. It puts you right there in the flying fortress as the guys are shot at by German fighters and hit by flak. The plane looks authentic, the setups pay off, the tension is good. But that's not to say the first half wasn't fine too. There is some foolishness, but the character development is easily balanced, and I liked that things felt genuine. Often more modern movies set in World War II don't gel with me because they either don't bother making the actors look like they belong in the 1940s, or they go overboard with 1940s style cliches. For the most part, this avoided those pitfalls, and it's a solid film. Movie number 9 is 1959's Warlock, which sounds like a movie I would avoid, but in this western, Warlock is the name of a town where the people are being terrorized by a local gang. After the sheriff suffers a humiliating defeat, the committee reluctantly hires Henry Fonda's notorious sharpshooter to deal with their problem. He and his gambler friend Anthony Quinn arrive and set up shop, which sparks an array of reactions. The initial premise might sound like one that's been done many times, but despite appearances, there's quite a lot of complexity here. There's more to the characters than meets the eye, relationships are complicated, pasts are murky. Fonda and Quinn give good performances, and Richard Widmark emerges as a conflicted hero, a member of the gang who leaves them and makes himself a social pariah. It's one of those movies where things aren't black or white. Who's a villain? Who's a protagonist? Are we supposed to like this person or not? What's really going on here? The leading ladies are Dorothy Malone, who wears some garish costumes and makeup, and Dolores Michaels, to whom they gave that faux natural look for contrast. Don't be fooled, though. They're both shrewd women. Did you notice the ubiquitous Whit Bissell back there? And there's also a supporting role for DeForest Kelley, a juicier part than he typically got in this period. He's one of the bad guys, laying the southern drawl on thick as he delivers some really good speeches, but the character has an underlying sense of fairness that later gives him some depth. I didn't love the movie, but I liked it well enough, and I appreciated its twists. Unfortunately, my viewing experience was marred because the DVD I got from the library was a hot mess. All these images I've shown you, that's not what the movie looked like for me. The main titles, let's see if I can explain this. The main titles were widescreen, they were letterbox. Except the movie had been reformatted to fit a 4:3 aspect ratio. So, the movie starts, here's our television, and there's black bars here, and then black bars here. The main title sequence is this small rectangle in the center, and I was like, oh no! I didn't like that, I was fussing, I was like, the actors are gonna be so tiny! And then it got worse when the titles ended, and the film switched to being full screen, so we lost the black bars on the top and bottom, but we had the black on the sides, which is fine. I watch a lot of movies in full screen, it's okay. But this was pan and scan. Pan and scan is the scourge of old widescreen movies. We had bad angles, actors just cut out of the picture, the camera zooming in on nothing. It was atrocious, especially in a movie that I now realize often crammed several actors into one shot. See how many people are in this shot? For me, it was like 2.5 people. And sometimes someone would be speaking and I didn't know if they were in the shot and I just couldn't see them, or if they were off screen. It was just terrible. The good news is there have been a few Blu-ray releases, I presume with the correct aspect ratio, and the film looks great, so if you want to see it, watch one of those, not this wretched DVD. And movie number 10 is 1999's The Straight Story. Richard Farnsworth plays Alvin Straight, an aging man with some serious health issues that reduce his mobility. But when he learns his brother's had a stroke, he sets out to make peace with him, driving all the way from Iowa to Wisconsin on a lawnmower. This incredible but true story was brought to the screen by director David Lynch. The bulk of his work is generally surreal, bizarre, at times disturbing, and not family-friendly, but this film, while it does have subtle Lynchian touches, stands as a major outlier. This was Richard Farnsworth's final performance, and he's wonderful. Alvin gently imparts bits of wisdom to those he encounters along the way. He doesn't talk a lot, but what he says matters. There is an ensemble of quirky, folksy characters, and they're funny, but particularly touching are the connections he makes with a young runaway and a fellow war veteran. Sissy Spacek as his daughter also gives a noteworthy performance, and then Harry Dean Stanton almost walks away with the whole picture in about 30 seconds. The pace of the film, like the progress of Straight's journey, is slow but steady, carried along by an appealing acoustic score composed by frequent Lynch collaborator Angelo Badalamenti. The narrative isn't big on action or visuals, but it is quietly powerful. A moving drama with a really good story and touches of humor that help make it a thoroughly enjoyable watch. And that's pretty much what else I saw in June, with the exception of anything I might see in the next few days. Those will have to be shuffled into the July video. Oh well, it doesn't matter. I hope you enjoyed this collection of reviews. You can find the titles and where I watched them listed in the description. Please let me know what you think in the comments below, and I will be back next Saturday, not with a review, but with the bloopers. Thanks for watching.